We were preparing for our next interview with András, and he told me that we will talk about the topic of dreams. Then I received an email from you, and there you mentioned such a topic for today, for which I am preparing myself to have enough guts and ask about for years already. This topic is about the good God. Welcome, András. I'm very thankful for your email from yesterday. It is true that I was preparing for a specific topic and was researching the subject of dreams, but I just told my colleagues that I am so excited about this event today because you have surfaced such a topic which keeps me intrigued for 3-4 years already, but had no guts to ask you about. Since we have to admit it is not easy to have a conversation about this, you have brought up the topic of the good God. Why?
We will get to the subject of dreams, but there is a precedent. Like everything has a precedent. Even our life has one. Many believe that God has forsaken them. But the truth is that God is waiting for us. The people are the ones who have left Him behind. They have started to focus on something completely different. They do not focus on the Great Spirit, on spirituality, but on an insidious thing, which is the mind itself. The mind is continuously playing a game with us. Every one of us has a mind. There are some who just simply have one. There are others who are even using it. However, when the mind gets too strong, it becomes the one that starts using the man. And when someone is living in his mind, he easily forgets about the greatest spirit, about his creator, the all-consciousness, the one to whom we owe our lives.
We can only forget about something if we know it exists, but they think it doesn't exist.
I was astonished when I was researching the history of religions and was searching for the spirit in religion and could not find it. In 870, at the Council of Constantinople, they deleted the spirit from the Bible. This is how it could happen that these days it does not appear in the Holy Trinity. We find there the Father, the Son, and the Holy Soul, but the Holy Spirit has disappeared from the Bible. Then I researched the different branches of science. In the case of science, we know already that it denies the existence of God. But something very interesting happened. Science placed itself into the image of God, and these days people owe to worship it. As I see it, it was religion and science, hand in hand, which conducted the greatest operation in people's lives, to divert us from our human essence, our spiritual self-consciousness.
Let us go a bit into the word spirit, what András mentions. What does this really mean?
There is a great difference between the spirit and the soul. The spirit is the Great Spirit. And if I want to go far back in time, there was the old God, the Great Spirit, who left the dimensions, the 21 dimensions he created, back to his two sons. One of these sons is called the good God. The other one is the dark side, or Satan. They are the two great spirits who have the power of creation here in our dimensions. That itself is a diversion already, that the religion states that there is only one God. Well, wherever we open the Bible up, in the Old or the New Testament, we find the Bible mentioning two gods everywhere. It talks about two spirits, two creative spirits. If you let me, Aniko, I would quote shortly from the Old Testament, from Genesis. Then God said, which means the good God, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." This is what we find a few lines below. And said the Lord. First, we found said God, who is the good God. Then said the Lord, and we can find out soon who this Lord is. I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground. For I regret that I have made them.
So are we not talking about the same being? Because he says he's the one who created them.
The one who says, I create man, is the good God. But when we keep reading, we see that it is not said God anymore, but said the Lord. These two concepts are being mixed everywhere in the Bible. Sometimes it is God, then Lord God, then the Lord again. But what we can see is that one of them loves the creation, the other one despises it. And as we can read about this Lord in the New Testament, in 8:44, you belong to your father, the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth. For there is no truth in him. John 8:44. So they are mentioning two creators in the New Testament also. One of them loves life and also respects life and creating life, while the other one hates it and wishes to kill all because he does not like any living being.
We were learning about one God from the earliest childhood. Then we met the Roman and Greek gods and goddesses. So, where is the truth?
There is one place where we find the truth, in the Spirit, that man who can talk with the spirits, who can speak the language of the spirits, who can look at creation from a spiritual perspective, that man sees the truth. A man whose thoughts are deriving from the mind, who is using the things he has been convinced about as a source, and even says, this is what I'm convinced about, will always see partial truth only. It is very important for us to learn about the true foundations and to recognize who were the ones who have derailed us. It very often turns out about the dogmas, the religious and the scientific dogmas also, that they are false. In fact, this is exactly why dogmas had to be created, so that everyone would believe them. Since the inner faith of people would not let them believe these, they had to create an external faith, which in fact is gullibility, so that people would start believing in false things.
András, you are using two words with similar meanings, faith and believing in something. Based on your explanation, there is a big difference between them.
There's a huge difference between them. When we are asking a man these days about what belief means to him, he would say that it means believing or not believing something. What I can say about this is that this is gullibility. This is a belief deriving from the mind. I believe it or I do not. I was researching the real meaning of this word for a long time. I found one explanation that I finally could accept, and it was the translation of a Greek word. This is what they say about belief in the Greek language. Belief equals with spiritual perspective. This means that I'm not watching the world with the mind, but with my spirit. Opening up the Bible, the Old Testament, we find Cain and Abel. God likes his child Abel very much, since he is living according to his teaching, according to his revelations, according to the Great Spirit. He is presenting his offerings to God, and God is accepting these offerings. Then comes Cain, and he does something completely different. He's not following the divine revelation, but he thought out what he should do. He is not acting out of his spirit, but of his mind. God does not accept his offerings, his presence. And later we learn from the Bible why he is acting this way. He is listening to the other creator, to Satan. And he, Satan, as we know already, is the murderer of man. And Cain kills Abel. And then he escapes to hiding. Well, this is how the man of these days is hiding into his own mind instead of becoming aware again and returning to his own spiritual self-consciousness.
There are only a very few of those conscious people who can recognize this in themselves. How can someone who's watching this interview now find out if he's just gullible or has a real belief? How can I distinguish between these two when I take the necessary time and search myself through?
We have to think these through deeply, and not just superficially watching them, but examining these things deeply from all aspects. This way, we can realize that the belief system we were building ourselves up in, based on our gullibility, through the false teachings that were pounded into our minds in the school system, the puzzle pieces do not complete each other at many places. We have to consider to start watching the world through a different set of glasses. No one likes lies. Still, a lot of people do lie.
Many times they do not even recognize that they lie. How will these people have a perspective on the future in faith then?
They have to develop a new perspective for themselves. They have to recognize their spiritual self-being again. They have to become fully aware that they are not only a mind and a body, but much more than these. Many accept this about themselves even more when we are asking them about who they think they are. They are telling us where they live, what is their profession, how many children they have, or what great things they've achieved in life. They tell us about what they are, that they are fathers, engineers, husbands, where they live, what they do. But this is the what, and what we have asked them about is who are they? We did not ask, what are you, but who are you? And about the question of who am I, what I can say is that I am a spirit.
Who is András?
I know exactly who he is. I know that I've been created from God, that I am part of God. I do not believe in God, but I know him. I have researched a lot so that I can finally find myself, so that I can find my spiritual identity. This is how I have got close to such a world, which is teaching me, calling my attention to the tricks and craftiness of the mind, because our mind is an excellent servant, but it is really crafty. When we do not ask it to serve us, then after a while it considers itself as being the ruler. In the tale about the fox and the chickens, we also have the crafty fox, and we see the chickens who are being deceived. But for the fox to be deceitful, well, we need to have the chickens also who can be deceived.
Why did András started to search for reality, the truth, as András says? Were you dissatisfied?
It was easy for me. I got into an accident, and there I fell into the state of clinical death when I was 9 years old. And for those few moments, those 9 short years of mine passed in front of my eyes, and I saw the upper world. I could see again where I came from, and then they took me back into this world. For me, the spiritual world is a tangible reality. We all came from there. However, when we're born, we put on a body and we start to build a type of soul. A small child still remembers these things. They see the entities also. But this ability is disappearing when they become 4 or 5 years old. It was intriguing to see this again when I was 9. Therefore, what others engage in conversations about or fantasize about, for me, it was a complete reality.
Did they believe you?
No, they did not. In the 70s, there were no such books yet. There were no such movies. Nothing was talking about this. I was looking for this everywhere. I was looking for this in religion, in science, but I didn't find it anywhere. Then suddenly came a new kind of world in the 80s and 90s, when people started to open up to an esoteric perspective. But this esoteric view was only touching the surface of these things. It did not talk about the spiritual world. I have traveled the world around, from the South American shamans to the Australian Aboriginals, and I've tried to find clues everywhere somehow. That particular thing about which everyone feels inside that exists. Only there is no one who would talk about it, who would be ready to show an example for it. After a while, based on my practical experiences and based on the miracles of many healed clients, I've got into this miracle world. I tried to analyze it. I tried to figure out what is working behind an event when there is an incurable client and then he gets healed, or when there is a blind man and then he sees again. When it is your hands that are healing such people, and you're fortunate enough to be present during these miracles, because it is always the healed person who is the miracle and not the healer. Then you get closer and closer to something. Then there was a nice gentleman who was living in Brazil, Dr. Ákos Licek. He managed to avoid heart surgery by visiting me for a treatment. After this, he gifted me with the ability of communicating with the spiritual world. Since then, it is them who are teaching me. Whatever I've heard from them, I have double-checked, and everything was perfectly fitting together.
Then it is not a problem to disbelieve?
Absolutely not. It is the disbelief which is helping us to break up that mysterious secret something that is being built around by the dogmas. And when we start to question the dogmas,
then it means that it is not God who we question when we are disbelieving, but the dogmas.
When we are disbelieving, when we have a spiritual belief, we never question God, but religion and science. Because religion identified itself with God. People believe religion being equal with God. God did not create religions. Then science denied God, but expected everyone to worship science itself. This looks like we are talking about two different directions, while they are nearly the same. Their essence is to distance us from our spiritual identity, and this they do really well.
What kind of God we find in Brazil, Australia, Asia, and in Europe?
I have visited all these places. Asia has no God. They do not believe in God. They do not believe in eternal life. They do not believe. They exist. In Australia, they have a deep kind of God consciousness. The Aboriginals have no religion, but what we can call what they have is being pagans. Being a pagan is not equal with godlessness. What it means is that these people do not believe in God, but they know God. In the grass, the trees, flowers, people, and everyone. In South America, I've been everywhere in South America, from Peru to Ecuador or Argentina. I was surprised to experience that even the shaman on Lake Titicaca are blessing the indigenous Indians in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They have already forgot that the Great Spirit exists. I have visited a lot of places. I tried to observe a lot of different religions from inside. I immersed myself in these religious trends. But I didn't manage to find those really being close to God. It's because, in fact, we do not need religions so that we can get close to God. Science has been created exactly with this purpose, to exclude even the possibility of a God existing. I ask scientists sometimes, please explain to me what matter is. Would you, dear Anniko, let me quote a part of Max Planck's Nobel Prize acceptance speech from 1918? He was a theoretical physicist. He was working with quantum physics. This is what he said. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together.
Az univerzumban minden, ami létezik,
all that exists in the universe has been created by energy. We must assume behind this energy the existence of a conscious mind that creates the matrix.
Mindezt úgy is mondhatjuk,
we can say all this also in this way.
Hagyományos értelemben vett anyag,
there is no such thing as matter in itself. And this particular conscious mind, this primeval source of matter, is God.
He dared to say it there.
Yes.
And what was the reaction? Did he still receive it?
He was not the only one who dared to talk about this.
Olyan biokémikusok is elmerték ezt mondani,
there were some biochemists who did not hide the fact that their knowledge was coming from other worlds, in the form of dreams.
A túlvilágokról érkezik, mégpedig álmok formájában. Ugyanis maga Albert Einstein,
even Albert Einstein was talking about that the greatest secret of scientists is the source that they get their knowledge from.
Mi a forrásuk?
He said that they shouldn't be ashamed of admitting that they receive all from the other side. The great father of biochemistry is also encouraging his disciples to learn to dream, because the messages are coming from there.
According to this, there are mediums amongst the scientists also. On what basis God chooses who to use as a messenger?
You need to have a well-prepared mind so that you can comprehend, understand, and process a divine message. There are a lot of scientists who are well-prepared. But even Churchill said, scientists are not here to give us orders, but they should be available for the leaders and ready to be ordered.
This is a great difference.
Science is being worshipped by many. The winner of a war will be chosen by the measure of destruction their weapons can create. Now, if the measure of divine worship is based on the measure of destruction, we have to think it through. If these ideas received from other words do really arrive from the good God, or from the other one, as long as they keep it secret that there are two gods, one is the good God, and if there is a good one, then there has to be another one also, who is bad. As long as this is a secret, people can be fooled. People cannot prepare themselves for the bad. People are being misled. I know that there is good and there is bad. So I always ask myself, I wonder who may be the one that this comes from right now. If I would think that there is only one God, I would not even ask this question at all.
This world is still a materialistic world. I do not want to win people, even for the good God. Now, this step with mentioning two gods would be a really huge step for them. What is a proper tool these days through which we can call people's attention to this kind of consciousness?
We have to teach people so that we can pass over to a new world, because the end state of this world has become obvious to us all already. The soil has been ruined. The agricultural fields became deserted because there was someone who came up with the idea of replacing the elements that the plants are taking from the soil. Sodium, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, nitrogen. They started to use fertilizers to grow plants 50 years ago. After the second year, it became clear that these plants became weakened, and a lot of diseases appeared also. With the appearance of fertilizers, this crisis situation grew right away. So they started to use chemicals to protect the plants against fungi or bugs. The plants became weaker and weaker. And these days, You can't even grow plants without fertilizers and pesticides. It's not a secret. About 80% of the agricultural soil became deserted. If the plants are not being treated with artificial fertilizers, there is no harvest at all. They have destroyed the agricultural fields. They have ruined the air. They have ruined the waters. All these are the achievements of science.
András, if all these have gotten destroyed, then we can assume that the ideas received may come from the dark side. Still, when someone is innovating, these people believe that they have invented something good. How can these mortal human beings know that these inventions that they believe to better humanity with, after 20, 30, 50 years, it turns out that he or she received bad guidance?
They do not study what the costs might be when they decide to do something. At what price? They do not have spiritual connections. They are working purely from the mind. This is the problem. When humanity had a direct connection with God, with the divine spheres, there were no such mistakes happening. No such things happened through thousands of years. After denying the Creator, when they did not listen to people with spiritual connections anymore, they listened only to their own mind. We have to know here that the good God is sending us intuitions in spirit. The dark side has power only to give ideas in the mind. Since these people are listening to their own mind only, they do not foresee any consequences. The good God saw before and sees these days also as all things before their time would come. The dark side sees these things also, but he is whispering such things into the ears of the scientists that come with unpredictable consequences, since he is the destroyer of man from the very beginning.
I hear already those who will ask, all right, but if the good God is so powerful, then why does he not make order again?
He still is waiting for the people to realize how great a mistake they have made with completely avoiding their own Creator. It's never too late. It is never too late. To build up a new, healthy world where there is morality, where there is dignity, where there is decency, where there is style, we have to reach the spiritual powers and not the darkness of the mind.
How can I make this happen at home?
It is difficult. I have spent a lot of time in India. I learned to meditate. I managed to create silence inside myself. But silence does not bring anything yet. There you can hear the music of the spheres. We can have specific soul experiences. But to get to spiritual experiences, we need to get to a deeper state of consciousness than this. Meditation is good when we want to turn the mind off. However, to get tuned into higher spiritual dimensions with our consciousness successfully, we have to learn a lot of things.
Is there an option for achieving all these alone at home as an autodidact?
It is very difficult. It is possible, dear Aniko, in a way like, for example, if you're writing down what you are saying, and maybe that in 5 to 10 years you could compose such a system through which you can write down your thoughts, but it is still not sure that anyone else would be able to understand them. Behind everything, there is a very serious, long-term preparation, practice, studies, and then testimonies. The testimonies are the ones which testify that which the individual discovered, that which the individual has gotten connected to, is really good. The spiritual world is telling us days, weeks, sometimes years before, what to watch for. What is the dark side working on? We were preparing a video about the viruses before, together with you. It was 1 year before the great pandemic situation. The spiritual world has told us everything before its time. People are asking me these days, what can we do in this crisis situation? What I can say is this: I was able to solve the situations before, and I can solve them now, because the good God is preparing people for this. But we cannot solve the problems on that level, where we have created them. We have to step up with one dimension always. And we have to learn about them beforehand. There are many people showing up and titling themselves as prophets. I'm smiling at a lot of them, just like you do. A spiritual message tells us what is coming before its time. And it is not about giving ideas after. Probably this is the best measure to check if someone is sharing his own wisdom or meditating messages from the other side.
What kind of people are the ones who have real faith, about whom we can say that this faith is a knowledge of the good God? Is it the same?
For sure. He has a faith in the good God, and also he has the faith in himself as being a spirit, the knowledge about that while he was born and he will die. Religion says that you were born, but you will die, and that will be the end. The man of true faith knows that he came from somewhere. He is here right now, and he goes on to something else. This is the eternal life of the Spirit. The opposite of birth is death. But death is not the opposite of life. And a man of real faith has the knowledge of this, that he lives forever. He was created by the good God. He is the creature of the good God. And as long as the good God lives, so does he. There are such people who take their own lives by their own hands. This is one of the greatest sins. We do not sin against others, but against ourselves. Life can be given by God only, and He is the one also who has the right to take it away.
What are the sins?
The sin of envy, when someone is envious. This is the attribute of the dark side. It injects envy into the human mind, hatred. It is injecting into people hatred against someone else. It's worth watching someone when he is hating someone else. Who will be the one suffering in the end? The one who lives with hatred. It accumulates, and then it kills himself. Then the sin of fear. People fear death. Fear of death has been injected into them. While death is the most gently reached arm of God, as He is taking the individual from the earthly existence back to eternity. Then the sin of inferiority, when people believe that they are less than someone else, while in reality, they are living a life according to their spiritual maturity, depending on the number of lives they've had up until now. But they are not less than anyone else. The great ones are not greater than anyone else either. They have more experience, and they have gotten closer to themselves a bit, closer to their spiritual self.
This differs a lot from the Ten Commandments.
When Moses brought the Ten Commandments, it was also written in there, "Do not kill." Moses sees that people are making a golden bull calf, and they are dancing around it. The golden bull calf is the symbol of a feminine deity. It is the symbol of God Mother. Then he kills the whole tribe. While it is written in the Ten Commandments, "Do not kill," what is the first thing he does? He is killing those who are worshiping a feminine deity. It is the first deed of Jesus in the New Testament that He gives a new order. He calls off the Ten Commandments because everything that is forbidden is desired by people, and Jesus knows this well. So He says, "I am giving you a new order."
Why do we want what is forbidden?
People have this nature. They want to test themselves. You can see that when a mother is telling to a child, "Do not run across the street." The child will run across. They always do what is forbidden. Jesus gives a new order. Love each other. The world today, as I see it, is being driven by selfishness, not by love. People became endlessly selfish.
Love is a concept behind which a lot of things can be hidden, things that are exactly the opposite of it.
Egyetértek vele.
I agree. I do not even use the word of love too often. It is overused. I absolutely agree with you. It became commonplace. In reality, it is a miracle. But many were hiding behind it. When people are asking me what love means to me, what I usually say is about a mother who is feeding her child thousands and thousands of times and not looking for compensation. A bird that feeds her nestling thousands and thousands of times, but not looking for compensation. Love is such a peculiar thing that gets created when we give. Many people are turning to me with the complaint that they do not get love. These times I am telling them that love cannot be received. It has to be given. That is the moment when it gets created in us.
Is it like thankfulness?
The feeling of love is just as deep psychological, spiritual phenomenon like the feeling of thankfulness. Once the apostles are asking Jesus why he loves Mary Magdalene more than them. Jesus says this, when I love her, do not I love you all by that? This is a feeling. And when it comes to the surface, everyone feels good in that. Love is not about wanting to receive gifts, because that is the act during which we feel being loved. That event is about being gifted. And that is a nice thing also. But love gets produced only when I give, from myself, from my time, from my emotions, from my thoughts.
To all around?
This is an interesting question about the many directions. What they say is that the one who is chasing more rabbits will not catch any. Love surely has different levels. Like I like you. Then you, dear Aniko, may fall in love with someone, which is a high octave form of love. And there is an even higher octave, when I love my grandchild in a heavenly form. This is what we feel as being the highest degree, but there is still an even higher one. When I love my Creator in a heavenly form. Everyone can experience the different octaves of all of these. These are emotional, soul-related heights. This all depends on our current spiritual state.
Can this be taught?
I am sure that we can.
How?
Through being an example. Just as the dark side, science, religions have very, very bad patterns that people learn to copy. There are also such people who are protectors, who are guarding, protecting the patterns of the good God, so that they would be preserved for the future. This is what Jesus said. Even if only one of you will survive, that one will grow new harvest, and the furrows in the fields will be filled with seeds again. These quantum seeds are the ones that we are guarding. Just like Max Planck said, the matrix system, the matrix philosophy, the quantum physics, the theoretical physics, which is in reality is the study of the soul. These perfect seeds we try to watch and protect. Because our Lord is perfect. It is Him who we strive to reflect.
I am proud about that András is respecting me by giving me interviews. Many people are telling me that they do not want a priest, but not even a teacher, to create a relationship with God. Why do this community of yours, these many thousands of people, need András?
I have completed the different degrees of science. It is strange to say, but I did not learn anything that would closely relate to the practical life. It was good for having a shared language when I was traveling and wanted to talk about history or philosophy or about electricity, based on my electric engineer diploma. You can have a shared common language that everyone learns and knows about around the world. I was studying the different religions in depth. I was studying the great religions of the world. It is interesting that a priest is not allowed to study other religions. This act would be called a sin in a religious community. I studied the great religions of the world because I wanted to know how people think about this topic. I hoped to find the best one that suited me as well. However, I found everywhere that these religions are made by humans. They did not have anything or almost anything to do with God. While there are prophets in the great scriptures, Quran, in the great testaments like the New Testament, Jesus also writes down what he brings with him from the Father. Even he was encouraging people to get into contact with their own spirit, with their own Creator. Jesus was leaving us a very serious spiritual teaching, but it has to be recognized by having the proper eyes.
What we can say is that András is the interpreter.
I am helping a bit at the beginning so that people could get tuned into this world easier. Then they do not necessarily have to suffer through what I did. I don't like to make statements, but I am calling the attention to things that are current reality. This is a particular way of thinking. Or let me rather say that this is something beyond that. We usually identify our brain with the mind. Well, this is such a world where I am calming my mind down, and I let them send me intuitions from the other side. I have received a lot of intuitions and have been taught for a lot of things. What would have happened if I would have said that I do not need a teacher? Then I would have just gotten into a great deal of trouble. The fact is that we always need teachers around. Just like I wish that God would bless the teachers who have taught us to write, to read, and to make basic calculations. Earlier, people did not simply call these people teachers, but they also called them disciplinarians. And may the spiritual world tell or teach something, they always do this in the way of an educator, a disciplinarian. In this world, the greatest is the smallest, and the smallest is the greatest. Humbleness and service toward the source.
How can I open myself to this source?
Make a decision.
Is this all?
And then I'm happy to introduce this world to you. I put a book in your hand that I was writing about my 10 years of conversations with the spiritual world. It is about all that they have taught me. Read that book. If you find even one word that you cannot agree with, put the book down. Because it means that this book is not for you. Every piece of their teachings is outrageous for the reader. Then the reader makes a round in the garden outraged, while also saying, "But this is all true." This is how it goes at first. The reader is constantly upset. I had a friend, a parish priest, and I gave this book to him. He used red and yellow highlighters on all pages, and he said, "The messages they are sending to you and what you are writing about, András, they're all outrageous." So I told him, "Then give it back." "No way," he said. Yes. At first, people become angry, then get upset. How can this be true, they ask.
It contradicts all what people think to be true.
Well, yes. How could they fool and mislead me this much up to now?
Or am I that stupid that I did not know about all these? There are many people with whom I'm talking or meeting and they say, no, this is not like that. These people are so closed that they cannot be touched at all. Then there are some who says, okay, let us say that these might occasionally be true. Then the next level, when they say that they are interested and they start reading it. Then they start being open towards the intuition they receive. Like in my case with my company, when many times I see or feel things that then become true in 3 or 4 days. And now I say thanks to the heavens for their support. But these all I feel inside, and there is no tangible evidence. This is why when I am talking with people who have no such experiences, I do not know how I could explain this to them. You start talking about all this in an explanatory way. I tell them that I just have been gifted with this. I have this peculiar feeling, but I do not loudly hear all these, but I have this inner kind of feeling, and then there is a thought coming that suggests what will be the right choice. And these thoughts are coming 3 days before. This I can call improvement. This is a very long process of improvement. Can this all be reached in a lifespan?
Of course, for sure. We can grow up to the current level of our consciousness because we are on different levels of consciousness. This depends on the number of lives we've lived up till now, or how many different kinds of life situations we have already passed, and what did we try to overcome before. And yes, this improvement can become fulfilled in a lifetime. We need to practice a lot. We need guidance and teaching. And slowly you can become a medium, because this is a practical mediumship. We all have been given the option of having the abilities of a medium. Imagine a cherry tree standing in the garden in May. The plants are just turning green when the green cherries appear on this tree. And by the end of May, we can find some red cherries on it. All the green cherries are saying to each other, "Look what they're doing. Are they sick? What do they want to do? They just want to be flashy?" 2 weeks passes, and the tree is full with red cherries. No one apologized to the first 2, though.
This is a very, very good story. András, with the same consciousness and openness, how the dreams can help us.
In 870 AD, they deleted the spirit from the Bible. Then science tries to delete God consciousness also from the people. But there is still an open door, because when people go to sleep, the spirits are sending them messages through their dreams. This is when the chemical industry comes up with the idea of producing sleeping pills. The ones who take sleeping pills never dream. Then they come up with the different mood enhancers. Those who take mood enhancers never dream. Then they come up with the different kinds of medications, and those who are taking those pills never dream. There was an experiment involving tens of thousands of people. As a result, the scientists came to this conclusion. When someone does not have any dreams for 2 days, this person will become irritated and impatient and does not find his place in life. In fact, everyone is dreaming every night, 4 times half an hour. Only many people do not remember this. They don't remember because no one taught them to remember when they were children. Very simple people in distant countries start their day with listening to the children telling what they were dreaming about. Then they gift them that same morning. So these children hardly can wait for telling their dreams because they know that they will receive a gift. Many people live their lives in a way that they have a dream and then they spend their next day accordingly. Because the dreams are always precognitive, which means that they show us things before their time would come. Our dreams are foresights. We always dream about the future. Sometimes we dream about the next day. We can dream about our own next day, or the next day of a community, or of a nation. And also, there are some people who dream about the tomorrow of all of humanity. This depends on the current consciousness level of the person. It depends also on what this person can comprehend and meditate, and what kind of tools this person has for meditating these messages. In ancient nations, people always knew what kind of dreamers were in their community. There were small and great dreamers. And if there was someone deceiving the community, which means that this person told them about a dream and it was not true, then he was called a charlatan. Telling something that was not true was a much greater sin than simply just forgetting a dream. How many people are telling things these days that do not turn out to be true? How many people lie, and then things do not turn out the way that they said they would? These people are not called charlatans these days. Well, that's exactly what they are. Dreams are marvelous. They are windows to the spiritual world. There are people, and not a few, who come to learn the art of dreaming in their 60s and 70s, because this is a mastery. Currently, I'm conducting a 3-year course, and I teach them to dream. I'm teaching my disciples how to go down to the deep state of consciousness, and then how to dream on that level. And I teach those to dream who cannot remember their dreams. Dream happens in dream. After the 3 years, most of my disciples will have the ability of foreseeing, which means precognition.
Are the dreams connected, or do they have a single meaning each night? Should we focus on each of them, or do they make up a series?
What I would say first is that we do not own our dreams. When I have a dream, that dream is not mine. When you, Aniko, dream about something, that dream is not yours. You are the one through whom they have sent the message. This does not only mean that I should try to remember my dreams and to decipher them, but I'm also obligated to tell others about my dreams. I suggest you watch people as they are having a conversation. One person says something. Then the other person says something different. Then the first changes the topic. Then the other one tells something else again. They do not listen to each other. They do not link to each other's train of thoughts. They're just telling something. Then just watch what is happening when someone says, "What I was dreaming about was," the other person will focus on that topic right away, because that person knows that dreams are true, mysterious things. When we tell others about our dreams, they will focus on us because it is spiritual, because it is miraculous. On a dream course, when we are listening to each other's dreams, and I am trying to guide the people in finding the keys to decipher their dreams, because that is an even more special thing than the dream itself, how to decipher our dreams, because dreams have unique code languages.
You said the word decipher. András sensed the question that I wanted to ask. There are a lot of different books about how to decipher our dreams. There are a lot of different interpretations available. Like, I was looking for the meaning of one specific thing, and I have found 4 different versions on the internet and in books. Which is the true one?
Everyone has a unique system of symbols. What we have to reveal is the unique way of thinking. Dreams have a specific way of thinking. This is what we have to become familiar with. We are the ones who can decipher our own system of symbols the most perfectly.
Then we have to work a lot on this. Always.
We constantly have to work on this. We have to have a dream journal. When we go back years in these journals, and we will see that there are signs coming up repeatedly, and then we can see what they meant one time and then another time. Without using a dream journal, you can be a talented beginner only. Working on a dream journal is very important. It's just like when someone wants to decipher the spiritual secrets of the basic elements, and he has to have a magus journal. Without using a magus journal, no one will become a really great magus. When I say magia, it means that we know the 4 basic elements: fire, water, earth, and air. We decipher our elementary attributes, our nature, and then we start ruling them, because it's not the knowledge of the existence of good and bad that is the main purpose. The purpose is not that I could see who is good and who is bad. The main purpose is to recognize the bad in myself, and then I can rein that in.
As a closing question, what is the greatest dream of András for the next few years?
My reality superseded all of my dreams. Only reality could exceed my imagination. It happened when I entrusted the spiritual world with teaching me. Please let me tell you a tale as closing words.
I love these tales of yours.
Once there was a great prison. There were many millions of people living in this prison. They were hungry, cold, and bored. They were in very, very poor condition.
Minden tönkrement.
Everything was ruined around them. Once, there was someone who decided to send food to these people, to the prison, so that they would not starve. There were trucks arriving to the prison.
Kamionok érkeztek.
They were bringing all kinds of food, canned food and all other kinds. People were eating, drinking. But after a few weeks, this amazement disappeared, and they started to say, "This is all good that we have food to eat, but we don't have clothing."
Nincsenek ruháink. Úgy döntöttek.
Some people decided to send clothing to these people with loaded trucks. So these people were dressed up in fur coats and nice shoes. So they had all. They had all the food and clothing. They looked happy for weeks, but then they said, "Well, we have all we need. We have food and clothing, but we're bored."
Újabb döntés született.
So there was a new decision.
Az embereknek a
They sent to these people by trucks video cameras and players, CD players,
a legmodernebb
the most state-of-the-art TVs and pen drives, computers.
komputereket. Az emberek jól el voltak.
The people felt good. They were not bored anymore. They had food and clothing. But then
Valaki,
came someone
aki kinyitotta
who opened the gates of the prison for them.
a ajtójukat. Kérdés.
The question is, how many people will come out? This person,
Ez az ember, aki a börtön
the
ajtóját.
one who was opening up the gates of the prison, was here 2,000 years ago. Very few people understand him, though.
János, a legkedvesebb.
John, his most beloved disciple, said this, "My God, dear Jesus, what I would not give so that I would understand even one single word of yours."
Ma Jézus
These days, Jesus' stories are being told, and they're trying to call people's attention to the issues of the soul.
Jézus Urunk
But it was a spiritual teaching that Jesus left behind for us.
hagyott itt hátra.
But people cannot figure it out even in traces
Vélik fölfedni, mert
because they are missing the proper glasses for understanding them.
érteni.
They need teachers.
Tanítókra.
And we also need to have such disciples who do not come with half-full cups saying, "Yes, I know a great deal of these things already." But they should be bold enough to come with empty cups. And they are ready to say, "We do not know anything about this world." Because when someone thinks that he knows everything about the spiritual world already, there surely has to be something that has escaped his attention.
Kerülte a figyelmét.
Well, András, this event was such a great experience again. I just tried to estimate the timing of the end. And I do not even want to call this an end, because for sure I would like to continue with the next interview if you let us to come back. This day was such an experience that all my senses got turned off and I was focusing on András alone. I say thanks to András each and every time for his willingness to sit down with us for an interview. But there is another thing for which I always say thanks, and maybe I have mentioned it already privately. The questions I ask are not my questions. I am focusing so much on András that my focus turns into something else after a while. It becomes much easier and I receive such questions from above for which I can only say thanks. I am very thankful for the opportunity of being here today.
Hálás vagyok érte.